Welcome. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Neil Cowan. I want to welcome you to Oakwood Manor's front porch. As you can see, we have some empty chairs, which is often how it is out there on the front porch. I want to thank you very much for being here. Let's take care of business right away. If you have a cell phone, turn it off, please. Make sure it's off. You know, it's disturbing both to your fellow theater goers and the performers as well. This is an hour, about 40-minute presentation show. Without any intermission, just wanted to let you know. And at the end of the evening, it would be great if some of you would stay around and help us reset the room with tables and chairs. Appreciate that. So this is a really special show for us in that there's no script. We started with the idea of stories and songs, and we made the whole thing up. We started with some raw stories that people came up with from their lives, and then they shaped them and polished them to the point where they're ready for performance. Every story that you'll hear tonight is really unique. Some are going to tickle your funny bone, and some will tug at your heart and touch your heart. And you know, probably, if you're from here, you know all of these storytellers. You know them as friends, neighbors, maybe family. But you don't know these stories, I promise you. And when you hear them, you may see your friends and neighbors in a different light. I know that all of us, the performers, the storytellers, really learned a lot about ourselves in going through this process. So we hope you enjoy the stories. That's the story side. The music side, the song side rather, is the band behind us. We call them Oakwood Boys and the Girl. So this is really a showcase of the musical talent that exists here in the park. I know you've heard some of these musicians, you know, solo from time to time. You've heard Dave Short, probably a whole lot. But you haven't heard this band, and you're in for a real treat. We chose songs that are familiar. Hopefully they're familiar to you. And so if you find yourself, you know, kind of tapping your foot, and maybe wanting to clap your hands and even sing, please do so, because we want your participation. And tonight really is about raising spirits, raising our spirits up. So, welcome to our front porch once again, and we hope you all enjoy, and we now present Story and Song.
Headed down south to the land of the pines, loving my way to North Carolina, staring up the road, praying to God I see headlights. I made it down the coast in 17 hours, picking me a bouquet of dogwood flowers. I'm hoping for Raleigh so I can see my baby tonight. So rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, any way you feel. Hey, mama, rock me. Rock me, mama, like the wind and the rain. Rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Hey, mama, rock me. Running from the cold up in New England, I was born to be a fiddler in an old-time string band. My baby plays the guitar, I pick up banjos now. Oh, the northern country winters keep forgetting me now. Lost my money playing poker, so I had to up and leave. But I ain't a turning back to living that old life no more. So rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, any way you feel. Hey, won't tote. But he's headed west from the Cumberland Gap to Johnson City, Tennessee. And I gotta get a move on before the sun. I hear my baby calling my name, and I know that she's the only one. And if I die in Raleigh, at least I will die free. So rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, any way you feel. Hey, mama, rock me. Rock me, mama, like the wind in the rain. Rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Hey, mama, rock me. Rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, any way you feel. Hey, mama, rock me.
It was well past our bedtime as we lay there listening to a chorus of frogs outside of our bedroom window. My brother and I shared a bedroom that looked out across the street over a great frog pond. Every once in a while, a frog would start chirping again after being disturbed by a barking dog or a passing car. Then hundreds would join in this melodious chorus that grew so intense into the night. It was a lovely lullaby to sleep by. Then morning came. It was April of 1954. I was 7 years old and my younger brother Steve was 6. We were so excited about the thought of going outside to play after it had rained hard for so many days. My mom, in early days, used to dress us alike, from Sunday best to play clothes, Western shirts, cowboy boots. He was my shadow, with me all the time. On trips to the local variety store for penny candy, he'd be right at my side. We'd walk into the store, and I'd ask Mrs. Hathaway for 2 brown paper bags, as we each had a nickel. And as we peered into that glass display case looking at that penny candy, I'd say, Mrs. Hathaway, I'd like a red licorice. And Steve would pipe up, me too. Then I'd spy a Mary Jane, and I'd say I'd take one of them. Steve replied, me too. Then we saw some nickel wafers in the back there, and I wanted them, and of course Steve said me too. So needless to say, the name Me Too stuck with my brother throughout his life. So we're down at the pond's edge. We go outside, we take our walk. It was a lovely, lovely day. We're looking out at this what used to be our old dusty playfield. Last fall into the winter, where we played pickup ball, wiffle ball. We had a good time. But the winter snows and the spring rain came and it flooded this whole place. And it became a frog pond. There were frogs everywhere. And this pond was so massive, we looked out into it and says, wow, this is our ocean. This is our ocean. It could have been a mile deep, and it went all the way up to the foot of a cemetery wall. Now this old cemetery was very, very historic. In this cemetery were these elm trees that were that big around. They had to be 100 years old. And in their trunks were carved many of the initials of sweethearts from years past. And in that cemetery, that old cemetery, there were buried whalers and sailors. I know that because my mom would walk us through that cemetery and she'd read the engravings on the gravestones to us. So, back at the frog pond, Steve and I were out looking over this vast ocean and said, boy, wouldn't it be nice to go out there if we could find a boat. So that was our mission. We went back across the street to the house. We looked all through the backyard looking for something that would take us on our journey onto this ocean. We eyed an old ironing board leaning up against the house, and we kind of felt it, and we went, no. The other side of the yard, we found an old galvanized wash tub, We turned it up, right side up, we got in it, we kind of decided that that wasn't going to work. We couldn't find anything until we looked in Mr. Spooner's yard. And in Mr. Spooner's yard, up against the fence, was this old wooden door. Mom called Mr. Spooner, and Mr. Spooner gave us permission to take that door, but only after he took the hardware off of it, the door handles and the hinges. So meanwhile, Mom brought us home, and she made us put on our galoshes. When those galoshes were on, we ran out the door, ran to Mr. Spooner's house, and we grabbed that heavy door the best we could for a couple of young lads, and we dragged that door out of his yard, we dragged it across the street, dragged it to the water's edge, and with great effort, mind you, this was a big door. We lifted it up on end, we walked it to the pond's end, and we let it go. With a thunderous splash, that door hit the water and frogs went everywhere. Now back up in Massachusetts, we call these frogs spring peepers. They are very melodious. So here we are, our boat's in the water, and nervously we step onto our boat, both of us at the same time, and it sank to the bottom. What to do? We needed a motor, or we needed some propulsion. So back to the yard. Before we went, we emptied our boots out, let the pond water out of our boots. We raced back to the backyard. We're looking. Stephen found a couple of loose pickets against the back fence, which we pulled off, ran back in sloshing boots back to the frog pond, got on our door again, and it sank again. So here we are with our fence pickets on our boat. It's on the bottom of the ocean, our ocean, and we push off. And with great effort, we push ourselves off from the shore. And we're grinding over sand and grass. And we're making our way out to the middle of our huge ocean. And we finally get out there. And we're amazed that we're there. And we look at one another. And we hug one another. While we're taking this all in, our imaginations are running wild. We hear voices. Where could those voices possibly be coming from on our ocean? And as we look toward the cemetery wall and beyond, we see this ghostly fog coming up out of the cemetery. And there, sitting on that cemetery wall, was a whaleboat captain and a sailor waving us on. We weren't afraid, but we paddled back to the shore fairly quickly. We secured our boat. We made it home. We were very, very hungry and very, very tired. And as we lay in bed that night, listening to a chorus of frogs sing outside our bedroom window, I leaned over to my brother and I said, what a great adventure that was that day, and how I would like to do it again very soon. And my brother Steve replied, me too. Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow.
Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on.
Please swallow your pride. If I have things you need to borrow, for no one can fill those of your needs that you won't let show.
You just
Call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might not strong, I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on forward. It won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. If there is a load that you have to bear, that you can't carry, I'm right up the road and I'll share your load if you just call me. Call me, call me, call me.
I was a very different kind of kid. From the time I was little, it was really clear that I was pretty creative. So, when I was about 2 years old,
Too far away.
When I was 2 years old, I had my own paint set. You know, one of those metal kinds with the little containers of all the different colored paints. One day, my mom came into my room, and I was painting very carefully all the colors. And I told her, red was my favorite color, and red tasted the best. As I got
Watch out, guys.
a bit older, my room was a hot mess because I went to enjoy projects, and I had little pieces of paper and little pieces of thread and whatever all over the room because I needed them for my projects. Very wisely, my parents didn't try to clean up that mess. One day I emerged from the room with a chiclet box. It was an empty chiclet box that I had made into a marionette show. The little window, the cellophane window, was the stage, and I had made these teeny little marionettes out of paper and thread. Kind of different. School was fine. I loved it, but the best thing happened after school. I was around the staff. We wore uniforms. We met in Connecticut in the old parish house, which was this wonderful big old building. We didn't go to a friend's house. We had this big building that we had in, and we had snacks. But best of all, we did projects. My mom was the leader, and my best friend's mother was the other leader. So it was really great. One day, our leaders came in with the best project ever. We were going to make dolls as a Christmas present for little girls who didn't have all the stuff that we had. These were going to be special gifts, Christmas gifts. Now, to make sure that all the dolls were the same size, we were given cutouts so that we could take these cutouts home and sew them together, and we would have dolls that we could dress any way we wanted. So, I had my cutout, and I had the instructions on how to put the dolls together, and we also had little tags for our dolls to put our names on, and our age, and our short number. Now, I didn't tell you this, but by the time I was 6, I knew how to use my mother's electric sewing machine because I needed that to make all my projects all by myself. So, we got home, and Mom helped me sew the doll together. She helped me stuff the doll, and she helped me make the doll's hair just the way I wanted. I had long yellow braids because I didn't quite like this color stuff. And then I knew what kind of doll I was going to do. My doll was going to be a horse riding doll. She was going to be dressed, ready to go for a ride on horseback. But it was not going to be Western. She wasn't going to have Western boots. She was going to have, you know, one of those little black velvet hats with a visor, and she was going to have those special pants with high boots. Oh, she was going to be a great rider. Mom helped me get the materials, and I made all the clothes. I made the hat, I made her shirt with little teeny buttons. She had a red tie, and she had on special pants and shiny boots. I was so excited to take her to the meeting where all of the other brownies were bringing their dolls. And guess what? My doll was the only doll that wasn't either a baby doll or a doll in a dress. My doll was really different. She rode a horseback, she was a horseback rider, and she even had a little prop. I was so excited because she was different. The troop leaders took our dolls to Hartford, where all over the region, other troops, Brownie troops, and Girl Scout troops had made dolls too, all the same size, all dressed, probably in dresses, definitely like baby dolls. What I didn't know was that not only were we making these wonderful gifts, but there was a contest. There was a contest for the prettiest baby doll, the best dressed doll, and there was a contest and prize for the most creative doll. Guess who got that? Of course. But not of course. It was really a surprise. So, as part of having won that, I had my picture in the newspaper. I was taken down to Hartford, dressed as my Brownie Scout uniform. There was a Girl Scout who was holding her prize doll, and we had in the newspaper picture a big pile of dolls, all in little layettes, all dressed as babies, all dressed in skirts, and one horseback riding doll that I was holding. The biggest part of that prize was that our dolls, the winning dolls, were displayed in the main window at G. Fox & Company. G. Fox & Company was the biggest store in all of Connecticut. That was a big deal. Very exciting because it was on Main Street. So we went down and saw that. But let me tell you, the best thing that happened out of this project was that on Christmas morning, I woke up and I knew that somewhere in Connecticut, there was a little girl who didn't get very much stuff for Christmas, but she got my very different doll that I had made almost all by myself.
A little bitty boy just up off the floor. We used to go down to Grandma's house every month end or so. Had chicken pie and country ham, homemade butter on the bread. But the best darn thing about Grandma's house was her great big feather bed. It was 9 feet wide, 6 feet high, and soft as a downy chick. It was made from the feathers of 47 geese, took a whole full of love for the dick. It had whole 8 kids and 4 hound dogs and a piggy we stole from the shed. We didn't get much sleep, but we had a lot of fun on Grandma's feather bed.
After supper we'd sit around the fire and the old folks would spit and chew. Pa would talk about the farm and the war and Granny'd sing a ballad or two. I'd sit and listen and watch the fire till the cobwebs filled my head. Next thing you know, I'd wake up in the morning in the middle of the old feather bed.
It was 9 feet wide and 6 feet high and soft as a downy chick. It was made from the feathers of 47 geese, took a whole one club for the dick. It had whole 8 kids and 4 hound dogs and a piggy we stole from the shed. Point, point. We didn't get much sleep, but we had a lot of fun on Grandma's feather bed. Well, I love my ma and I love my pa and I love Granny and Grandpa too. I've been fishing with my uncle, I wrestled with my cousins, and I even kissed Aunt Lou. But if I ever had to make a choice, I guess that it ought to be said that I'd trade them all, plus the gal down the road for Grandma's feather bed. It was 9 feet wide and 6 feet high, soft as a downy chick. It was man from the feathers of 47 geese took a hold on a call for the tick. Then hold 8 kids and 4 hound dogs and a piggy we stole from the shed. We didn't get much sleep, but we had a lot of fun on Grandma's feather bed. We didn't get much sleep, but we had a lot of fun on Grandma's feather bed.
Right now, I wish I were in that feather bed. I think a lot of you know that about 3 years ago, I broke my leg. And I don't think you know the fear I felt at the time that I might not walk again. And it brought back memories of others in my family who were in that similar situation. Now, my story begins a long time ago, before probably some of you were even born. 1940 to be exact. And I lived with my great-grandmother in a small town in Maine. I loved to go to the movies, and Roy Rogers was my favorite. And for 10 cents every Saturday afternoon, most Saturdays, he became my hero. I was going to marry Roy Rogers. But you know what happened to that? Anyway, as you can probably tell, I was a very strong and independent little girl. But I was very afraid of the newsreels that were shown before every movie. Now, we all know what was going on in 1944. It was World War II. About the same time, my father had developed multiple sclerosis. And several months later, my mother left, my parents divorced. And my mother decided to go to Newport, Rhode Island to work in the torpedo factory on Goat Island. Now, many of the torpedoes in both World War I and World War II were made in this torpedo factory. It was a booming business. And they employed at one time, I think, around 13,000 people, many of them women like my mother. And tonight, actually, I'm wearing a little replica of a torpedo that was made at this factory that evidently was given to some of the employees. If you went to Goat Island today, I've never been there. It's beautiful hotels and condos and yachts, but for decades, it was a densely packed military base with many military men. And in fact, I've talked to some people here that actually were at that base. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Robert, who was to become my stepfather. Robert was from Buffalo, New York, and he joined the Navy about this same time and became a torpedoman. He was stationed on the destroyer, the USS Reuben James, and maybe some of you are familiar with that ship. Reuben James was a destroyer, and it sailed from Iceland in October of 1941. It was escorting a convoy of merchant ships that were taking supplies to Great Britain. There was a U-boat waiting. And the U-boat was looking for merchant ships to destroy. Fired a torpedo. It hit the Reuben James in the bow. The bow exploded and it sank immediately. The aft floated maybe 5 minutes and that too went into the sea. There were only 44 enlisted men who survived that torpedoing. Robert, who had been on night duty, decided instead of going to bed, he'd go get something to eat. And that decision saved his life. He jumped to O's throne into the ocean, cold, October, off Iceland, but there were fires from the leaking fuel that kept the water warm, and so he survived and was picked up by one of the other destroyers. And it's interesting that this is the first warship that the Navy lost during the Second World War, and it was 5 weeks before Pearl Harbor. So we really weren't even in the war then. He was reassigned to another destroyer in Newport, Rhode Island, and with a population of maybe 30,000 people, he found my mother. They eventually married, but not before he was torpedoed again off the coast of Spain and again survived. In 1946, after the war, my brother was born, and I finally rejoined this family. I had been living with my grandmother in Maine. I was 11 years old. While Robert was on temporary duty in Cuba, my mother became very ill, and I didn't know what to do. We were alone, my brother, my mother, and I, and she was in a lot of pain, thought she had the flu, but after about 3 days, she collapsed and she couldn't walk. And so she managed to call the naval hospital, and 3 doctors arrived. I still can see them coming up the stairs to our apartment. My mother was diagnosed with polio. As my brother and I watched from the living room window, they took her away in an ambulance, and I saw all the other tenants leaving the building, and I couldn't understand where was everybody going. What I didn't know was that the building was going to be quarantined. And so the quarantine notice was put on the door, and nobody was to go in this building or go out of it. And my brother and I are alone. I truthfully do not remember how I got through the next day or two. I do know that an aunt arrived, and we managed after that to take all the linen, all of her clothes, everything in the apartment had to be taken to a special cleaner, and it had to be boiled and sterilized. I'd like to say that my family really never survived these tragedies, never really got over these tragedies. Robert suffered from depression and alcoholism most of his life. And my mother, at the age of 34, lost the use of both legs. And I, at the age of 12, became the main caregiver. When I was lying in a bed in a hospital here 3 years ago, and they told me that the break was very severe, of a 1 out of 10, it was a 10. I, for the first time, could feel the fear that my mother must have felt when she was told she'd never walk again. And what my father must have felt when he was a young man in his 20s and he had been diagnosed with MS. I can never remember my father walking without Canadian canes. And I always remember my mother walking with heavy leg braces and crutches. After 2 surgeries, 3 weeks of rehab, and months of physical therapy, as you can see, I can walk. So I've learned sometimes your worst memories are the ones that give you the strength and courage to get through what you have to get through. So, in memory of my mother and father, I'm walking for them tonight. Thank you.
Knew my wife. This old house was home and shelter as we fought the storms of life. This old house once rang with laughter. This old house heard many shouts. Now she trembles in the darkness when the lightning strikes about.
Ain't gonna need this house no longer. Ain't gonna need this house no more. Ain't got time to fix the shingles. Ain't got time to fix the floor. Ain't got time to have a hinges drawer and the window pane. Ain't gonna need this house no longer. I'm getting ready to be the same. This old house is getting shaky. This old house is getting old. This old house lets in the rain, and this old house lets in the cold. On my knees I'm getting chilly, but I feel no fear or pain, 'cause I see an angel peeking through the broken got time to fix the shingles, ain't got time to fix the floor, ain't got time to oil the hinges, nor the end of the window pane. Ain't gonna need this house no longer, I'm getting ready to meet the saints.
Now my old hound dog died to sleep and he don't know I'm gonna leave. Else he'd wake up by the fireplace and sit there howling breathe. My hunting days are over, ain't gonna hunt the coon no more. Gabriel done brought in my chariot when the wind blew down the door.
I ain't gonna need this house no longer, ain't gonna need this house no more. Ain't got time to fix the shingles, ain't got time to fix the floor, ain't got time to oil the hinges, nor the end of the window pane. Ain't gonna need this house no longer, I'm getting ready to meet the saints. Oh, when the saints,
Oh, when the saints
go marching in,
go marching in,
oh, when the saints go marching in,
go marching in.
oh, Lord, I want to be in that number when the saints go marching in.
In the summer of 1982, I had been dating a lovely lady for a few months, and for fun and adventure, we decided we'd go on a canoe trip down the Flambeau River in northern Wisconsin. So off we went. At the end of the second day on the river, we pulled into shore at a designated campground, unloaded the canoe, set up the tent, started a fire, and enjoyed a good meal. Everything was going very well. We sat by the fire, just talking and enjoying each other's company. And it was a beautiful summer night. The sound of the river flowing by, a dark blue sky full of stars, warm breeze to keep the mosquitoes at bay, a full moon. It reminded me of a song by the Eagles, Peaceful, Easy Feeling. It made both of us just glad to be alive. Well, about 10:30, we turned in to sleep so we could get rested and finish our trip the next day. Well, I didn't get much sleep that night. Now, don't speculate why, because I'm going to tell you why. About an hour and a half later, I was awakened by a noise just outside our tent. I knew immediately what was out there. Inwardly, I was hoping I was wrong. I grabbed a flashlight and a .22 pistol and started crawling to the front of the tent. Now, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I had enough sense not to shoot a bear with a .22 pistol. It was just making him angry and even more dangerous. I took the gun along just to boost my own courage. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. Later, I was glad I did. Reluctantly, I got out of the tent, and sure enough, about 5 feet away was a bear. Still eating our food. From inside the tent came a question. What is it? A bear, I replied. No further questions or conversation from within the tent. Not a good sign. I was thinking, oh boy, what am I going to do to get this bear out of there? I couldn't just stand there with a grin and bear it attitude. I had to do something. Plan A. I flashed the light at it, I waved my arms, I yelled at it. He wasn't impressed with any of my antics. He just kept on eating. My earlier feeling quickly changed to a fearful, uneasy feeling. So, anyway, he was a fairly big bear. I estimate he weighed between 350 to 400 pounds. He had already eaten some buns, some chips and some cookies. The bags were scattered about. We had a Coleman cooler nearby. The Yogi Bear must have tutored this bear on how to rate a campsite. He went over to the cooler, he didn't bat it around, he didn't paw it. He just went down, bit into the hard plastic at the bottom, picked it up, shook it till the cover came open and the contents fell out. And he began eating. I realized that if he ate all the contents of that cooler and he was still hungry, there was only two things left for him to eat. I did not want things to get to that point. Now the thing that scared me most about this situation was the simple fact, other than, please Mr. Bear, don't do that, there was nothing I could do to stop this bear from doing anything it wanted. I felt extremely vulnerable and powerless. And I was frantically searching for an idea that might get rid of this bear. Plan B. I thought maybe if I fired a shot from the pistol, the sound might scare it and it would run off. No. Bad idea. If it scared it bad enough, it might charge instead of leave. Now what am I going to do? Okay, finally, an idea that might work. Fire. All animals are wary but afraid of fire. There was still some coals glowing in the fire pit. I had to move closer to the bear, but I began picking up small pieces of wood and putting them on the coals. They began to burn. I added larger pieces until there was a good flame. I stood behind the flame and fired a shot into the ground. The bear jerked alert, looked at me, and goes, "Oof!" I quickly fired another shot, and he ran off. Wow, it worked. I was so relieved. I almost threw my shoulder out trying to pat myself on the back. I stayed up all night keeping the fire going. I stayed up all night keeping the fire going the rest of the night and watching in case the bear returned. At dawn, he came back. He knew there was food still there. It was light enough to see clearly now, and as he passed the picnic table, his back haunches were 10 to 12 inches above the top of the table, confirming my original estimate on size. I quickly fired 2 shots in the ground, and he ran off again. The shots awoke my friend. We broke camp, loaded up the canoe. We didn't have to load as much as we unloaded the night before. And we set off down the river. We completed our trip and made it home safely. Now, over 35 years later, I still have that Coleman cooler with the bear's teeth marks at the bottom and use it occasionally. Even more amazing than that is That lovely lady is still with me. She is now my wife. She's sitting behind me. Now I'm going to be like that bear and leave.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, growing like a breeze. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home, country roads. All my memories gather round her, miner's lady, stranger to blue water, dark and dusty, painted on the sky, misty takes of moonshine and teardrops in my eye. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home, country roads. I hear her voice in the morning hour, she calls me. The radio reminds me of my home far away. And driving down the road I get a feeling that I should have been home yesterday. Yesterday, country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home. Country roads, country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home, country roads.
I grew up at the corner drugstore that my parents owned in Southwest Philadelphia. In fact, my mom went into labor in the store, and 1 week later she came back to the store with me in tow. I'll tell you, growing up in a drugstore was a child's paradise. There was a soda fountain. There was a 5-cent candy bar display, and there was an ice cream freezer that had Dixie cups, and I would eat it with a wooden spoon. And we had comic book racks, and we had magazines. I mean, it was the corner drugstore, and it had everything. And it was just wonderful. But what was best about it was that I got to spend all of my time with my mom and dad. There was also a classroom. I learned how to count by counting the 6 chrome stools in front of the soda fountain that spun around, and it was a blue leather seat, and there were 4 booths where the people came in for lunch, so it was 6 plus 4, that's 10. And I learned my ABCs by going behind the pharmacy counter with my dad, and he had all the chemicals in alphabetical order. So I learned my ABCs through the chemicals. The other thing that my daddy taught me was how to say my name and how to spell it, because I had a little bit of a challenge. My name was Judith Lutheran. 2 THs, and it was a little tricky, but I got it down. You might say that I was a little bit precocious as a child. So when I was 4.5, my parents thought that I would be ready for early admission into kindergarten. So my mom, she took me by the hand and we walked a block down to the elementary school where I was going to meet with the school administrator. Now the name of the school was B.B. Comegys, but my older sister and brother, they had nicknamed it Bedbug Center. So I'm introduced to the school administrator and she invites me into her office and she says, your mom is going to wait for you outside. I said, okay. She said, I'm going to ask you some questions. And I said, okay. She said, do you know how to count? And I said, no. Do you know your ABCs? No. Do you know how to spell your name? No. Do you dress yourself? No. Can you tie your shoes? No, I can't do that either. She said, well, thank you so much for meeting with me. I'm going to talk to your mom now. So my mom goes in. She talks to the school administrator. I have no idea what they said to one another. And my mother comes out and she says to me, Judy, why did you say no to everything she asked you? You can do all those things. And I said, I don't want to go to kindergarten. I want to go home. So my mom looked at me and she said, okay. So we walked home. We walked back to the store. She told my dad. And then I started spending a little less time in the store. I started spending a little more time with my dollies upstairs. We had an apartment above the drugstore. And I would lean my dollies. I said, we have to get ready for school because someday this is going to happen. So I would lean my dollies against the radiator. Now, you all probably say radiator, but I'm from Philadelphia. We say radiator. So I would lean my dollies against the radiator, and I would lean against my bed sitting on the floor. And I had Saucy Walker, I had Tiny Tears, I had Betsy Wetsy, and I had Sweet Sue. These were my dollies. And I said to them, we have to get ready for school, so I'm going to teach you how to count. And I did. I taught them how to count. And I said, I'm going to teach you the ABCs because we're going to have to know that for first grade because we're not going to kindergarten, we're going to first grade. Okay. And then it occurred to me that we would have to learn how to read. Now, I couldn't read at 4.5, but I could pretend I could read. So I would go downstairs to the store and I would get my favorite comic book, which was Archie, with Jughead and Veronica and Betty, and I would bring it back upstairs and I would open it up and I'd say, here's the story, and we would make the story up together and I would ask them questions and they would always get the right answers. They were very smart dollies. I said, there's one more thing we have to do to get ready for school. We have to learn how to behave right. When you go to school, you have to stand in line. So Saucy Walker, who was, the walking doll, she would stand first, and then Betsy Wetsy would lean up into her, and then Tiny Tears, and then Sweet Sue. And they would all stand in line. I was very proud of them. And then I helped them sit down. And I said, the other thing you have to learn is you have to learn to raise your hand if you want to talk. So they needed a little bit of help with that. I would have to help them raise their hands, and then I would put them down, because they were very clever. I thought I had really pulled one over on my parents and that school administrator, because I didn't want to go to school. What I wanted was to stay in the store with my mommy and daddy. What I didn't understand, what I didn't know, was that my parents and the school administrator could see that I really was not ready at 4.5 to go to kindergarten. Sometimes children think they know more than the adults in their life. But we know they don't.
You who are on the road must have a code that you can live by, and so become yourself, because the past is just a goodbye. Teach your children well, their father's hell did slowly go by. Them on your dreams, the one they picked, the one you'll know by. Don't you ever ask them why, they told you you would cry, so just look at them and smile, and know they love you. And you, of tender years, can't know the fears that your elders grew by, and so please help them with your youth. They seek the truth before they can die. Teach your parents well, their children's hell will slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams, the one they pick, the one you'll know by. Don't you ever ask them why, if they told you you would cry, so just look at them and smile, and know they love you.
My story begins in 1997. I was employed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in the Medicaid department. And I also worked part-time in my local grocery store. My sons were grown men, and I had 7 grandchildren. And my life was good. But there was change on the horizon. You see, it's at that grocery store that I met my husband, Tony Calvino. Tony would come into the store quite frequently, and especially on the nights that I worked. And he would always come to my register. It was Memorial Day weekend, and he came in, and he asked me if I would be interested in going to supper with him. And I said yes. So it was that evening. We went out to dinner, and we were talking. And Tony told me about his work, that his wife had passed away, that he had 3 grown children and 7 grandchildren. But he also asked me what I like to do for fun. So I said, well, I like to dance. And that was all I could think of. I like to dance. I also told him about my favorite aunt, my Auntie Blanche. Auntie Blanche was widowed, and she didn't have much of a social life. So I would call her once or twice a month, and we would go to church. And then we would go out to eat. And then we'd go to a cocktail lounge. Auntie would have her favorite scotch on the rocks, and I would dance.
I started dating Tony, and I thought that it would be a good idea to call Auntie Blanche and let her know why I hadn't been calling her. I told Auntie all about Tony. Oh, she was so excited. Oh, that's so wonderful. I'm so happy for you. I said, oh, Auntie, we're only friends. And don't get too excited. Because, you see, he doesn't meet my criteria. You have a criteria? I said, yes. And what is your criteria? I said, well, Auntie, you know, I like a gentleman with hair. And he's bald. I like a gentleman who's taller than I am. He's my same height. And worst of all, he doesn't dance. Auntie was quiet. It took a few minutes. And finally she said, Jackie, I think that you should get to know him better, because you could be cutting yourself short. Words of wisdom from Auntie Blanche. Now Tony, I enjoyed dating Tony. He was kind, he was thoughtful, he was considerate, and he made me laugh a lot. I remember the first time that I brought 4 of my 7 grandchildren to his home on the lake. When we got there, 3 of his grandchildren were already there. Whoa, 7 kids. You know, that number 7 kept piling up all the time. 7 kids. What's going to happen? Well, my fears were for naught. Because these kids got along famously. It was as though they had known each other forever. That evening, when I was bringing my grandchildren back home, my oldest grandson, Ross, he said, Grammy, can I ask you a question? I said, sure, honey, what is it? When are we going to see our new friends again? Oh, that left an impression on me. I thought, this is meant to be. It was Christmas Eve. And Tony and I had decided that it would be best if we opened our gifts together at my house before we joined the rest of the family. So he came to the house, we come walking in the house, and he had this package, which he put on the kitchen table. It was nicely wrapped with a big bow. But I couldn't figure out what it could possibly be because it wasn't a small box. It was a bigger box, but not a big box. So I quickly ripped off the wrapping, and to my surprise, it was a jack-in-the-box. A jack-in-the-box? Are you kidding me? What is this? So I looked over at Tony, I glanced over at him, and he's standing there. And he had his famous antics grin on his face. He said, honey, you need to wind it up. You need to wind it up. Pop goes the weasel. And in the mouth of this clown was my engagement ring. Now, it was also Tony's idea that we should have our grandchildren as attendants in our wedding. Well, I don't know, 14 kids? I wanted more like a tiny little candlelight ceremony. But the more I thought about these kids, the better it looked to me. So I went along with it. Sean, 4.5 years old, Tony's only grandson, was his best man. Melissa, my oldest granddaughter, was my maid of honor. And Ross, My oldest grandson, who couldn't wait to see his new friends again, walked me down the aisle. Now, that was 18 years ago. And so today, we have 17 great-grandchildren. And Blanche, Auntie Blanche, I thank you, Auntie, for your words of wisdom.
Some say love, it is a river that drowns the tender reed. Some say love, it is a razor that leaves your heart to bleed. Some say love, it is a hunger and endless aching need. I say love, it is a flower, and you, its only seed. It's the heart afraid of breaking that never learns to dance. It's a dream afraid of waking that never takes a chance. It's the one who won't be taken, who cannot seem to give, and the soul afraid of dying that never learns to live. When the night has been too lonely and the road has been too long, and you think that love is only for the lucky and the strong, just remember in the winter, far beneath the bitter snows, lies the seed that with the sun's love in the spring becomes the rose.
It had been snowing for several hours. Looking through the window at my aunt and uncle's apartment, I couldn't even see the bottom of the hill hidden behind a white veil. My aunt and uncle also lived over a store that they had. It was a general store that carried just about everything, mostly groceries. This was before the days of supermarkets. So people would come in with their little orders and hand them to the grocer, and he would fill the orders for them. They didn't touch anything in the store. The walls were covered with canned goods. The store was built on this very steep hill. The top window, you couldn't see anything but feet walking by. You got down a little farther and it was like half a body, and by the time people got to the door, it was a whole body coming in. There were big containers of cookies stacked together, meeting you as you opened the door. 2 steps down into the store. Coca-Cola chest. They also had the penny candy. And I think that Art and me too would have had a ball. There were huge glass domed candy containers. There was a refrigerator for most of the dairy products, but there was also a huge ice box that held most of the big cuts of meat that he would slice to order for people. Ice had to be delivered about 3 times a week. And I was up there during my vacations from school. I always went up from the time I was a little girl and helped in the store. Now I was somewhat useful. I was a senior in high school. So we were down in the store together when this young man came in, struggling with a huge block of ice. We hadn't seen him before. And he walked around, put the ice away, came out and introduced himself. He was the son of the owner of the ice business. And he talked to us for a little bit and left. He said he'd be doing all the deliveries during the Christmas break because he was on break from college. So he left, and I kind of thought about his schedule. He was really huge. And I decided I would be in the store whenever he came in with the ice. He did come in for the other 2 days that week, and he would stop and visit a little bit with us on his way out until his father leaned on the horn. After the second week, he asked if I would like to go to a movie. Well, I thought that was pretty special, and my uncle knew the family, so he said, okay, I think that would be fun. So here I am, standing at the window, waiting for headlights to start up the hill or shine on the snow. I was pretty nervous and a little bit apprehensive, sort of like I am now. But eventually, I could see the headlights coming up, and they came up rather slowly up the hill. Parked in front of the apartment, and it was the ice truck. I was stunned, but I threw on my jacket and grabbed my mittens and my hat and went on downstairs. He met me at the door, brought me over to the truck, and I looked up at the truck, and I never made it to 5'2". There was no way I could get into that truck. Well, he reached down, picked me up, and lifted me into the front seat. It was so cold outside and not much warmer in the cab of that truck. When we continued up the hill, the truck didn't like it much, and it was kind of coughing its way to the top of the hill. We turned onto the main street, and he said, well, I'm going to have to make a couple of deliveries along the way. Oh, okay, I am sort of like a block of your ice at this particular moment. But we made the deliveries, and we got to the movie, and he lifted me out of the truck and down to the parking lot. I was thinking everybody in sight would be laughing at this maneuver. I don't really remember much about the rest of that time at the theater. I don't think I ever really defrosted. But on the way home, he said, you know, I think the truck was having too much trouble getting up that hill. We better go around to the back and come down the hill. Well, he got the wheels onto the hill, all 4 wheels onto the hill, and lost traction. So the truck kind of began to slide a little bit, went a little bit faster, and a little bit faster, down to the bottom of the hill and across a street, fortunately no cars coming, and into a snowbank. For the first time, I was grateful for a truck. He tried to back up, but the wheels would just spin. He couldn't get anywhere. So he came around, picked me up and carried me off the truck and put me down on the sidewalk, and we kind of slipped and slid all the way up to my aunt's door. He apologized for all of the adventure that evening, but he said, I really enjoyed your company and we'll have to do this again. I thought to myself, in your dreams. So I thanked him and shut the door on the worst date of my life.
From the great Atlantic Ocean to the wide Pacific shore, from the green New Hampshire mountains to the Southland's pagan lore, she's mighty tall and handsome and loved by one and all. She's the combination called the Wabash Cannonball. Oh, listen to the jingle, the rumble and the roar, as she glides along the woodlands through the hills and by the shore. Hear the mighty rush of her engine, hear lonesome hobo's call. We're traveling through the jungles on the Wabash Cannonball. Lester! Well, here's the Daddy Blackstone, his name forever stand, and it'll always be remembered through the courts of Alabama. His earthly race is over, the curtains round him fall. We'll carry him on to glory on the Wabash Cannonball. Oh, listen to the jingle, the rumble and the roar, as she glides along the woodland through the hills and by the shore. Hear the mighty rush of her engine, hear the lonesome hobo's call. We're traveling through the jungles on the Wabash Cannonball. She pulled into the station one cold December day. As she rolled up to the platform, you could hear all the people say, there's a gal from Tennessee, she's long and she is tall. She came down from Birmingham on the Wabash Cannonball. Oh, listen to the jingle, the rumble and the roar, as she glides along the woodland through the hills and by the shore. Hear the mighty rush of her engine, hear the lonesome hobo's call. We're traveling through the jungles on the Wabash Cannonball.
When I was a teenager, I fell in love hard, and I never got over it. I grew up in a suburb of Chicago, and in my town, there was this theater. And it was something that you couldn't miss. It stood on a major intersection, right on US 41. Right, the same US 41 is over there. And over the parking lot, there was a sign that said, Herb Rogers Music Theater. The theater itself was housed in this huge old canvas, red and white striped circus tent. It was a big thing. It must have been a one-ring circus, but instead of a ring in the center, there was a round stage, because they did theater in the round. It was summer stock theater. And next to the stage, there was an orchestra pit, and then aisles leading out like spokes of a wheel. Well, I thought it was wonderful. They performed Broadway musicals of the day, Camelot, Oklahoma, Music Man, all the great ones, and I loved it. The theater was only a couple miles from my home. And when I was 15, I wanted to usher there. And so my parents gave me permission to ride my bike over to the theater. And I would do that. I got to admit, the reason I really went there was to the chance to meet girls. There were a lot of cute girls who ushered there. And on occasion, if the house wasn't a sellout and there were some seats, I could be found sitting next to one of them in the back row with my arm casually resting up on the side, on the back of her chair. When I was 16, I ushered there as well during that summer. And it was still the girls that interested me, but more and more it became the shows. I mean, it was a spectacle, right? The music, the costumes, the lights, the makeup, and the stories. I loved it. And I got to see the shows over and over and over, learn the stories, memorize the lines, learn the lyrics of the songs. It was a wonderful experience. And also, it was the actors that drew me in. They were magnificent. They were all so attractive and beautiful people who could act, sing, and dance. And they seemed to be able to do any move that their choreographer told them to do. It was amazing. I was very impressed. I wanted to be one of them for sure. When I was 17, I ushered there again. Only this time, I was offered the job of usher captain. I was paid $20 a week. And I was thrilled to get that. Plus, I had the authority of being the usher captain. I got to train the ushers, assign them their posts around the theater. And it was just a wonderful, my first wonderful job. Well, there was one usher in particular that I had a crush on. Debbie White. She was a beauty. She had this long, straight black hair that hung down to the middle of her back. Dark brown, puppy dog, soulful eyes, and full lips, which I desired to kiss. Well, that season, one of the shows that they were doing became my absolute favorite, West Side Story. It was so different, right? I loved the music. It was so tender and beautiful and heartrending. And I saw the show over and over and over, learned all the lyrics, and just loved it. And the dancing, wow, it was so muscular and raw, it was very powerful. And I just really had a wonderful time with that show. And of course the story, it was Romeo and Juliet. And in my teenage brain, I was Tony. And guess who was Maria? Right, Debbie? So one night, in the middle of the run, I'm standing at the end of my aisle on my post. I'm standing next to a group of actors. And it's kind of in the middle of the show. It's a full house, so I don't have a place to sit. And the actors are kind of waiting for their music cue to charge down the aisle and perform. And they're just standing there. And they're quietly snapping their fingers to the music and kind of moving gradually. And they're just like vibrating. They're kind of like, I don't know, champion racehorses in the gate, ready to go charging down the aisle. And I'm just looking at them. They're so beautiful. And they've got their skin-tight costumes. And, you know, it was a hot night. I could smell the sweat coming off their bodies, smell the grease paint painted on their faces. And they were just so awesome. I wanted to be one of them so badly. Well, their music cue hit, and they take off down the aisle, and I don't know what came over me, but I take off too! Not down the aisle. I take off down the side of the tent, And I'm running down the side of the tent, and I get to Debbie's aisle. She's the next aisle over. And I say, Debbie. And I stick out my hand, and she grabs my hand. And the two of us start racing around the outside of the tent. Now, it's a closed tent, so people could see us around the outside of this tent. And in that moment, I am Tony and she is Maria. We're running through the streets of New York City. And so we race around to the other aisles, and we signal to the other ushers, come on, because I was the usher captain. They followed my lead, and they knew they shouldn't get off their post, but I was the usher captain, so we all race out in this big paved area next to the tent, near the snack bar. And the music is just pounding through the side wall of the tent. We can hear it. Boy, crazy boy, stay loose, boy, breeze it, buzz it, easy does it. Turn off the juice, boy, go man go, but not like a yo-yo school boy. Just play it cool, boy, real cool. And we are dancing this number, and all of us are just dancing across this asphalt, and my feet are flying. And in that moment, I'm one of them. I'm one of those actors. And I look up at the sky in the beautiful blue twilight, and the full moon is shining down on us like this huge spotlight. And it's just magical. And in that moment, I know I've found my heart's desire. I am in love with the theater. And you know, I think to myself, I want this moment, this scene, to last forever. And look, it has!
She's my baby. She's very, very clever. I like her mother. And she's so clever that she found a way to send me messages from heaven. When she was 20 years old, she was a junior in college at Salve Virginia University, which is in Newport, Rhode Island. And she and a friend were out buying Christmas presents for friends, and another car ran into theirs.
Yeah, it was a
Her friend was thrown out of the car and
I don't know what
broke
was
a
going
few
on
bones
there.
in her legs, and fine after that. But for Danielle, it was a fatal accident. About a little over 5 months later, we were meeting a small group of the family for a memorial mass. It was Danielle's 21st birthday. And we were celebrating her because she was a special person. And my older daughter, Nicole, says to me, you know, I have a message for Danielle. I said, what do you mean you got a message from Danielle? I don't know, I just have a message from Danielle. How'd you get it? Well, there's a woman in Connecticut named Fran, my godson, and she can converse with people who have passed on. Danielle talked to Fran. Fran wrote down her message, which is what she does, and then Fran had to get it to us. The problem was that Fran didn't know Danielle, and it was addressed to my other daughter, Nicole. She didn't know Nicole either. So what she did was, for those 5 months, she would ask people when she'd like go to a party or something, do you know anyone named Nicole who has lost someone recently? And eventually she spoke to her own niece, and her niece said, yeah, I know a girl who lives in Newport, whose sister was in an automobile accident in December. Well, it must be her. So she gave the message to Nicole, and Nicole gave it to us on Danielle's 21st birthday. This is what it said. It was dated November 18th of 2004, which was one day after her accident. So it only took her one day. That's how clever she is. She tried to get in touch with us. To Nicole, greetings. Safe arrival, suffering no more than a scraped knee. Try to see the wonder in this new journey. It is so sad from the tragedy perspective, but I am fine. And I will be in touch soon and often. You'll know. Well, my husband Henry and I didn't know what to think about that note. And I told Henry that I could understand that happening. I believe in that possibility because a number of years ago, I also got a message from somebody. It was in 1984, right after Danielle was born. In my head, I heard this male voice, Danielle will not live to be an adult. And I just thought, what are you doing? Stop thinking things like that. But I knew it wasn't me thinking it. And I just let it go. And about a week and a half, again, same thing, same voice. Danielle will not live to be an adult. That time I told Henry that this had happened to me twice, just to go on record that it happened to me. So I was pretty ready to take her word that that was a message from her. But he's a scientist. He teaches chemistry and physics, and he needs proof. So I said, it's too bad we don't have her autopsy report. I sent for it, Why? I have no idea why I would do that, but I did. And Henry says, well, it did come. It came a couple of months ago, and I put it in the file cabinet because I didn't want you to see it. So we got it out of the file cabinet. There we are, sitting on the couch, reading our kid's autopsy on our 21st birthday. And other than, of course, the major chest trauma was what took her from us, everything else that they checked was normal, except she had a scraped knee. only thing that was other than just. We have received probably 75 to 100 messages through Fran. And some of them, I get a drink right now, it's drying up on me. Some of them talk about things that have actually happened. One day, my daughter was over, my older daughter, with her 3-year-old little girl. And she's telling me about what a hard time Isabel had given her the day before when she was trying to get her ready for snow. She wanted to go out and play, and Nicole's trying to get her dressed, and comes to the boots, and she won't put on the boots. She doesn't like those kind of boots. Those are snow boots. I don't like them. I want my rubber boots. I want my puddle jumpers. I want my puddle boots. That's what I want to wear. So after fighting back and forth for a while, Nicole finally says, go ahead, wear your rubber boots. And I said, well, I just got a message from your sister today. Let me read it to you. Rubber boots keep people's feet really, really dry. Boots with zippers can be attractive, but they can leak. Wet feet can actually freeze. Oh well. Nicole says, she must have been there with us. She must have been right there with us when this was happening. And we have a few others like that. I don't have time to read them all. But talking about something that you've just done. Sometimes she tells a little bit about what she's doing. This one said, God gave me a job. I'm breathing into this thing. In heaven, I help young children who are dying. I lead them to heaven. Now, at Salve Regina University, she was studying to be a social worker. She wanted to work with mothers and young children. And it seems as though she is doing that. She's just not doing it down here with us. My friend Fran, who gave me all those messages, had a really serious physical problem. And we almost lost her. She almost left us. But the doctor saved her, and it's taken a long time for her to rehab. And since this has happened, she doesn't hear voices anymore. So we're not able to get any more messages, at least not through Fran. But as I said at the beginning, Danielle is very clever, and so there are other ways that she lets us know she's around. Some of them are very funny. But I'll tell you that in another time.
These prison walls that's flown, I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I die. Hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. Oh, how glad and happy when we meet. I'll fly away.
Dr. Neil Collins. Yay. If some people would be willing to stay around and help us reset the room, I would really appreciate it. Thank you all so much for coming out. We hope you enjoyed.